the best way to start the March. Look at those beautiful flowers. Wow, just purple and beautiful, gorgeous. Right here in the concrete jungle. Gonna be a little shorty going to see the movies. Special edition marching for every marching steps for Texas relief. I'm calling for the gross. I'm gonna go see Ballerina, the John Wick ballerina flick, and of course that's what I'm gonna be doing. And I'm calling for 1% of course to be donated on the go, and that's what of course 1% of the gross of course, the gross bills, the gross of course income, the net income, whatever the how you categorize, and of course how you compute the profits for 1% of course to be dedicated of course to Texas relief efforts. And for the relief, 1% of the gross domestic of every movie that's gonna play from now until whenever. That's what they're gonna be with that, and that's what they're gonna be with that rock and roll, and that's what I gotta get drilling with that. And here for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, and the grocery store clerks, and all those involved in the production, distribution of food. And that's how we're gonna drop some of that garbage right here. And we're gonna rock and roll for the bus drivers and politicians and the bakers, the butchers and the nurses, the doctors, the firefighters, all those involved in the production, distribution of food. And that's how we're gonna get drilling on that rock and roll. And that's how we're gonna get drilling for the left, for the right, for the butchers, for the truckers, for the firefighters, all those involved in the production, distribution of food. That's how we're gonna go, and that's how we're gonna trip on that rock and roll, you know, for the butchers, the left and the right. Texas, special Texas relief. And that's how we're gonna get drilling, you know. That's how we're gonna get going to see a movie. So it's gonna be for the left, for the right, and in the middle. Of course, in the pro-labor love march for yours truly, Dragon. And that's how we're gonna get drilling here in the sun, you know. That's how we're gonna get doing on that. And gonna make sure we turn properly here. And that's how we're gonna turn your heads left and right when you cross the streets. Do fully, of course, encourage turning left or right. Sometimes the brakes malfunction, so if the brakes malfunction, you gotta be careful. And of course, when you cross the streets, that's how we're gonna get doing, man. When you cross the streets, you gotta be prudent, man. We're gonna go get that hydration. Hot day today. 22, 25, 26, 26, 27. That's how we're gonna get drilling, man. Somebody's getting a little bit of tan here. Perfect way to get a little bit of that sunshine. Melody from the sky in freestyle mode, you know, none edited. That's where I'm heading. Thank you, workers, for building this. This is what you need. HYDRAT, thank you to the workers who built this. This is what we're looking for. Oh yeah. This is what we need. Water. That's what you need, man. You need to HYDRAT, and that's what you're gonna get drilling. And you know, you need some of that hydration for the left and for the right, and that's what we're gonna get doing, man. You know, gotta get it on in the zone, in the movements, in the here and now, you know. Grateful, thankful, my rent's paid, electricity bill's paid, got food and coffee. And usually I wait about 10 seconds for it to get clear from the, you know, you got a little bit of that dust, a little bit of that, of course, iron, a little bit of that steel down there, a little bit of rust. So I always try to take a good look, take about 20 seconds. So until the pipe's clear, gotta salute. Those who build it, the public workers across the 63, the Imperial, Republic, and Democratik, coming up to you near, in a movie theater near you, freestyle, financially stressed, and you know I have Asperger's, so I'm a bit weird. That's that neurological mental divergent condition known as Asperger's. I'm a bit on the weirdo, more bizarre type of communication manners, but it's nothing that I can do about it. I have Asperger's, so you're gonna have to learn and appreciate Asperger's syndrome, just like that book, which was gifted by my anonymous friend last year, who was my friend because I was alone for a few weeks, and I read it, and I learned a lot about my neurological mental divergent condition known as Asperger's. So sometimes our communication, the way we communicate, can seem a bit, you know, going in one direction, then turning in another direction, then going back to the same direction. But unless we discuss our special interests, which of course for aspects can vary, and so we're gonna get drilling with that, and so we're gonna get some of that loving, you know, for the left, right, Z, and for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the grocery store clerks, unless the crow crowed 4 times. The crow crowed 4 times, 4 times. The crow crowed 4 times, you know. 4 times I counted the crow. And that is something which, of course, is a good omen. 4 times, that's for the left, for the right, for the center, and then the middle, right, and the roundabout. Again, 4 times. It says, go dragon, go dragon, go dragon, go dragon. I guess my only fans, and that's why we gotta get drilling, you know, for those who get, of course, on the left and on the right, and all those in the middle, you know, to get it done, man. Sometimes you just gotta. So I'm gonna start my fitness journey today. You know, it's been a few years for me, but that is something which we're gonna be on the mindfulness of the things which we have in common here, you know. This big civilization being a privilege, and marching for Texas, love you Texas, calling for 1% of the, if you make 100 million, that means 1% is $1 million to donate to Texas relief, and turn your heads left and right before you cross the street on the prudent side, and we're heading towards downtown area core, you know. Here we go, and always something which we have to be mindful about in our discourses. Oh yeah, look at that. This is very good. I'm just gonna take some apples. Somebody made some good donations, so gotta thank the farmers, truckers with it, you know. Truckers. I'm gonna take some radishes actually. I'm gonna take some white radishes and red radishes, so that's gonna be something, you know. So I'm gonna do, see? There we go. That's so good, and take a little bit of that. Nice, thank you. Hey, that's good. Oh yeah, you got some radish. Oh yeah. So that's always good, you know, to get it on the go, and there's something which I gotta appreciate, some radishes, you know. See here, see it's empty. We're gonna put those radishes in the back, and we're gonna get drilling, although I find some of them a little bit, I guess they gotta be eaten, and gonna go grab some. Just gonna get rid of this. That can be composted, so that's compostable there, so I'm gonna throw it in the back, and just gonna go get some more radishes. I'm gonna one more batch. I guess I'm gonna make a salad radish tomorrow. And an apple, you know. Thank you, farmers, construction workers, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, and firefighters, and all those involved in the production, distribution of food. And that's how we got drill here. So I'm gonna put them there with the red gloves. Red gloves. Those red gloves are gifted from my anonymous friend, who gifted yours truly about 2018, when, of course, in 2018, when I started challenging Donald Trump to a boxing match on the Canadian-US border, and I've been, of course, challenging Donald Trump ever since. And let's go on the Canadian-US border. Please give 1% of the gross income from the movies across Canada and United States for Texas relief, and that's how we're gonna get drilling on the road. It's not that heavy now, it's got 22 pounds. Yeah, there we go, enough for my. And here you got a little bit of that building, and a little bit that you gotta turn your heads left or right nonetheless, even if there's no car, you know, something which you gotta do. I encourage you all to. And now we're heading towards downtown, and we're gonna cross the street here turn your heads left and right. I calculate and see how I calculate. I kind of see the car. I kind of know the velocity, the speed it's going, and about the meters that I have to, and the meters in the yards, of course, that I have to speed up to traverse. And I kind of calculate the answers come in my mind that I'm gonna be safe. You know, it's a mathematical calculation of the distance and things of such nature as I am good, you know, of mathematical percentile calculations and speed and velocity, and especially percentages, as I am good in geopolitics, while certain other things, social dimensions, I lack the certain skills like many Aspergers. Fellow Aspies, the less than 1 percentile, less than half of a percentile, we Aspies, of course, we are 0.44%, 0.44%. That's not a lot of people who have, of course, Asperger's. And again, Asperger's is a neurological mental divergent condition, not to be confused with a mental illness. There's still a lot of work to be being done, of course, but that is the full understanding, which you have to know and understand that it's not a mental illness at all. It is a neurodivergence, and according to this, because and since and due to this neurodivergence, we can have certain difficulties in a social settings, social manners, social interactions, and can have weird and awkward and strange social bizarre comportments, you know. It's just the comportments, and can seem a bit bizarre, awkward and weird and strange, but that's just Asperger's, you know. And what Asperger's is, first and foremost, it is not a mental illness. It is a neurological mental divergent condition, and makes me predisposed to these special interests. And of course, what do I do this morning? This morning since this afternoon, because it was 4 o'clock when I left my dragon's lair. And of course I do geopolitical theorizing and analysis. I was listening to the words of the leaders that met in BRICS. Of course, the China and Russia leader was, of course, absent there. And that's what it is. And due to their absenteeism, it was mostly Brazil, Lula's president of Brazil, who spoke a little bit and to kind of guess the initiative, and India's Prime Minister Modi, because of course BRICS enlarged. They added 6 new states, so now they're 11, and a lot of them, of course, going on the left and right, and that's how we gotta get doing that. And so we gotta get doing on the left and on the left and on the right and in the middle, and something which we have to be consequently reminded of, that this new organization is expanding. And from the interesting perspective is that they were calling for the dissolution of the multipolar world, which of course they have to be doing on the go and doing on the right and doing on the left sometimes, and doing on the concordium, which we have to be doing on those prepositions, which we have to be doing on the prepositions of the things which we have to be analyzing. And of course, as a geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist, is something which I do on the daily with intensity and focus. And of course, the focus which we have is something which we have in ourselves, you know, to be able to. We are fully immersed and fully focused and fully concentrated when, of course, we are involved in those special interests. And of course, special interests are, for me, because I'm an individual Aspie, and that's what it is. And with Asperger's, of course, is something which it's consequently proven to point, not to prove a point, but to just make the point that Asperger's, of course, we have special interests, and also known as obsessive interests. But these special interests, the problem is, they preoccupy the majority of our time with intensity, super focus, super concentration, sometimes to the detriment of other things, you know. So it could be other things that we're more for neglecting other things in consequence, you know. So the consequential prepositions is, of course, that we tend to neglect certain things to the detriment of others. But I am good at geopolitics, and parallel to geopolitics, of course, it's rock and roll fitness, and that's what it is with the rock and roll and fitness. And of course, for me, Dancing is my favorite sport, so that Trinity, sports and fitness. Dancing is my favorite sport, and rock and roll. Rock and roll, I gotta be. That's why I stopped, because I want to cross safely and all my fellow citizens there on the crossing safely, and it's something which I have to be aware of in the public, you know, because I'm in the public and I have added responsibilities, duties and obligations which I don't have in the public, you know, which I don't have in the private, that is, that I do have in the public. Right here in the public, I have to, like, we all have to, I have to stay on the right side, just like driving, and I have to make sure when other citizens, of course, they don't cross the street, and that's what it is. And when they cross the street, of course, I have to be aware and be prudent, of course, for their safety, my safety. Interaction with each other must be cordial, and of course, as much as we can in the public, you know, added responsibilities of which we all have. And now I'm a bit on the pressing matters, because I gotta get back. I gotta get back, of course, to the movies, to the theaters in time. And I'm thinking about going to get some candy, but I don't really have to, because if I have apples and whatever have you, then I gotta get a little bit of that candy. Should I not? Should I go take a ride here? If I take a ride, I'm gonna have to go by downtown, but I'm just gonna go cheer on a little bit of the public workers. Gotta salute the public workers. So a little bit on their work all across the collective North American civilization, the 10 provinces, 50 states and 3 territories, and of course all those involved in the production, distribution of food. And here we got some arbeit, and of course I'm always into the work like this, which we have to do a lot of work, you know, a lot of prepositions and a lot of rebuilding of the whole North American infrastructure collective, and that's how we got, and that's how we gotta get drilling, you know. So I'm always happy to see those holding hands, and these roads needs to be fixed. So it's always something which we have to be doing, you know, because I love work. But the problem is with Asperger's, there's a lot of misunderstandings and miscommunications, and sometimes it's more difficult. We always have to build bridges, you know, bridges between myself as a neurodivergent and of course the neurotypicals, against of course the neurotypicals. So it's not an antagonistic relation, right? I have no resentment, no antagonistic against the 99.56%. We have to build bridges and we have to work together. But the problem is that Asperger's, Aspies, the main 3 problems is lack of friendships. I'm not looking for any friends specifically, and I lost a lot of friends with benefits only. So just to be clear, to waste nobody's time, because I don't want to waste anybody's time, you know, and my individual sovereignty and liberty and joy, and what I love to do is what I do, of course, with intensity and concentration, and that's what I do. We have routines, ritualized routines, you know. So these ritualized routines are prepositions, of course, and these ritualized routines that, of course, we live in. Aspies, we have routines, ritualized routines, and for years, my routine is working out, training, exercising, analyzing, doing geopolitical theoretical analysis, and developing strategy. And my strategies, you can check past videos from the past days, past weeks, past months, and even past years, where, of course, I discuss my geopolitical strategies. And my geopolitical strategy is good, and especially the bipolar geopolitical strategy for the North American collective fusion of Canada and United States via the DRT, and the establishment of the Dominion, the double D, Dominion and Dominion, and defense for the North American collective. Not to be confused again, bipolar with the psychiatric psychological disorder. This is strictly in the geopolitical sense. So those are the main problems: lack of friends. And among the lack of friends is also, the problem is also that, well, this is a very problematic, and it's totally unacceptable that 80%, that's 80, not 8%, it's it's 80%, 8 out of 10, 80 out of 100, right? 4 out of 5 Aspies are unemployed. I had many jobs, which I love, but It's usually a few months, 4 months. In the past 7 years, my longest I think was 4 months. Then for a few weeks, then a few days, and a few days, and whatever the case may be. And that's what it is with that, and that's what it goes, and that's why they gotta get that trouble, man. So that's just how I live with, That's just how I live with, That's just how I live with, and what I am, And the problem is depression and suicidal rates are 9 times higher. So considering that we're a tiny small minority, and I'm part of the LGBTQ community as well, of course, but LGBTQ, millennials and Gen Zs are arranged between 5 and 7%. Between 5 and 7%, right? Between 5 and 7%. Between 5 and 7%. While Aspies are less than 1 percentile, 0.44%, less than half of a percentile Aspies. So that's why a lot of people, most people don't know about Asperger's, but they know about LGBTQ because it's more prevalent. There's higher numbers, percentages of LGBTQ people than there are Aspies. So it's a tiny community, but I have to build bridges. I have to build bridges. So the bridges that I have to build, and other Aspies have to build with the fellow neurotypical community, the vast majority, is a constant thing, because some bridges are smaller, some bridges are larger, some bridges are medium-sized, and some bridges have to be super large. Some out of concrete, out of metal, out of steel, out of aluminum, or allieds, depending, right? For individual citizens, But that is what we have to do, because I'm not antagonistic, There's no resentment, there's no antagonistic relations. And yes, I live with unemployment like the vast majority of Aspies. Yes, I have the characteristics, not symptoms. Again, people who use symptoms, I'm going to correct the citizens who use symptoms, because it's not symptoms. Symptoms is for a malady, for an illness. Aspies, we have these mutations of the brain, So these mutations of the brain, think about it like 4 little microchips. The microchips are really tiny, so it's not visible outside of your cell phone, your smartphone, your computer. Those microchips are not outwardly visible, they're internal. So the mutations of the brain are not visible on the brain exteriorly, superficially, exterior, in an exterior manner. So there are of course microchips. They're tiny, So that's how we gotta get doing. The microchips are very tiny, and that's why we have to be mindful of inconsequential. So they're tiny mutations of the brain. And these mutations make us weird, awkward, bizarre in certain matters, especially social communications and interactions, the way we speak. For us, it's very hard to process them, It's very hard to process. And it's very hard to understand certain social dynamics, non-written social rules, when to speak. For example, personal space, I have to work on it constantly. So the personal space is, of course, usually about 2-3 feet, right? So the personal space is something which we have to work on it constantly, Constantly is the mental, of course, capabilities which we have, and that's how we gotta get drilling on that. So the mental capabilities. Hey, look at that car. Wow, what is that car? That's what we gotta get doing, and that's how we gotta get drilling with that. And that's a nice color there. Wow, it's a nice color. That's what we gotta get doing, That's what we gotta get doing on the drill. So So that's why we have to consequently be always prudent about it. And of course, thank you to my anonymous friend who gifted me that book, Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome, because due to that book, I learned my vulnerabilities as an Aspie, because I've been diagnosed and told and diagnosed by several people and individuals throughout the past years, even online. But the problem was I never accepted, really, because accepting that you're different, that you have Asperger's, there's no medication for it. You cannot medicate Asperger's. But you, of course, can manage the symptoms by knowing, by always constant. For example, you know, sometimes you see me, I discuss with other citizens, I get very close to them, and then I have to retreat. I take 2 steps back because I remember, hey, personal space, neurotypicals. You have the neurotypicals, which of course they have to be aware of. Those things which of course can be hard to manage. Those things can be hard to manage. And they're not, because it's a neurotypical thing, right? The personal space. We do not understand the neurotypical manners. We think about it like a stranger in a strange land, but of course we gotta think about the stranger in a strange land, or even like an alien, you know? So these things are kind of very foreign, very alien to us. It's because of those mutations in the brain. So those mutations in the brain makes us, of course, that we're different, you know, that we're different, you know, that we're different. So that's why we have to be in the consequential manner where we have these ideas about what Asperger's is and what is not. And of course, those ideas, of course, are parallel to what Asperger's is really, which is this neurological mental divergent condition which makes me predisposed to those special interests, you know. And those special interests, myself and Aspies, you have to encourage Aspies in that, especially if you have a child, a youth, even an adult. You have to encourage them in those special interests as much as you can. Sports and fitness for me, geopolitics and rock and roll, that's my holy trinity 24/7. I got those red gloves in the back. They were gifted by my anonymous friend, my anonymous friend, by my anonymous friend, and that's what it is with that, that's what it is with that, and that's how we gotta get drilling, you know. It's for the left, and for the right, and in the middle, you know. Sometimes which we have to be doing on the consequential things, and we gotta get it now when we cross the street, and that's all we're gonna get, you know. Super important. Well, that's a big pothole, look at that. That's a crater. That needs to be fixed. Big crater, you know. Big crater, and that's what it is for that, and that's how we gotta get doing. Here I'm gonna get some sweets. Just gonna get some sweets, and real quick. Be in and out, because they're affordable here. Alright, so we got some sweets. Didn't go over budget, but some prices went up. And that's what it is, I guess, with the taxes, you know. You gotta expect to pay some taxes. So 4, 5, 6, 7, yeah, 8.50. Sometimes you gotta double check the bill. Thank you for those donating some food there, but sometimes you just gotta check the bills, you know, and make sure you got the right bill. Because sometimes items get scanned twice, right? So items can get scanned twice, but I didn't go over budget, and I love my sweets, you know, and that's how we gotta get drilling with that. And here we got some marvelous, of course, not all for today, you know. I'm not gonna finish those for today. If I finish those for today, you know, that's gonna be too much for me, and that's how we're gonna get drilling with that. And always be grateful, thankful, you know, that I got that $10 to get sweets. Hopefully it'll last me until tomorrow before the big full moon holiday begins Thursday, a 3-day full moon holiday. And look at this beauty. Isn't that just gorgeous how Mother Nature just pierced, and the things you see here, Mother Nature, are just amazing, and in the concrete how they grew, and that's how we gotta get doing with that. And gonna turn the head left or right. Still gotta turn, you know, left and right, man. Turn your head. The brakes malfunction, the citizen presses the accelerator and the brake, and that's what it is. And that's why I'm in hawk mode, H-A-W-K, you know, my favorite bird, a hawk here in Hawk Island, Montreal. And gotta salute the firefighters, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors. Gotta send some loving rock and roll. Ain't about a few minutes passing that I'm not thinking about them. Integree in the geopolitical context of today, you know, as I have Asperger's, and of course I am also a mystic, artist, athlete, philosopher, and geopolitical theoretical analyst, theorist, and strategy. I believe my strategy best for the 21st century manner to fuse Canada and the United States. My brothers and sisters, the king is absent. The king is absent. It's time for the Republic. Pledging allegiance to the King of England, for goodness gracious. That is something which kind of said, oh my goodness, no, that gotta go. You know, it's time for the Republic, and my way to fuse Canada, United States best. I guess it is our common destiny here, but we also have to be taking care of the population more vulnerable, of course, and millionaires, billionaires give to Texas, and calling for the movie which I'm gonna see, 1% of the gross income of Canada, United States. So if it makes 100 million, give a million, 1% at least, donate it to Texas relief and reconstruction, and that's how we gotta get doing like that, and that's how we gotta get drilling with this one here. Whenever I pass by this building, which was called Empress Theater, always triggers a little bit of flashes of ancient past lives and reincarnations every time that I pass by it. Is something which of course I believe in, reincarnations, and I'm a mystic. I was born in the United States thrice, 3 times post 7076. Once was born a woman, twice a man. And if you know about George Patton, you know that he wrote one of my favorite poems called Through a Glass Darkly, THROUGH, through a GLASS, glass DARKLY, through a glass darkly. And of course, Through a Glass Darkly is one of my favorite poems. He didn't mention, of course, that in a past life he only mentioned his male, masculine reincarnations, but that's what they gotta get doing our drill, and that's how we gotta get doing like that. So, but he was my wife about 2,600 years ago. George Patton was my wife in his previous incarnations, and somebody laughing, doing a little bit of that loving there, and that's how we gotta get doing like that. And my fellow cousins, aunties, uncles here, the great North American family, Canada, United States as well, of course, because you know me, I was depressed and suicidal, as I discuss it often, because it's part of Aspies, of course. Aspies, we suffer by depression and suicidal and unemployment way more than the average population, the 99.56% of you fellow your family as well, you know, you're all family, but you got my Aspie family, and you got the neurotypical family, and which you, the vast majority, are part of the neurotypical. And of course, I was depressed, I was suicidal, and what got me out of being depressed and suicidal was crossing Canada coast to coast in 2017 summer. In August it's gonna be 8 years. I got the tickets, auctioning them for $1 million. Gonna give 1%, 10% in this matter to Texas relief if I get it to get sold by next week, you know. And of course, the other problems which I encounter, as many Aspies do, is again the high unemployment. But the other problem which we have, of course, is something which we have to get on the levels of where we are as Aspies, as individual Aspies, and consequently integrated and building bridges with the neurotypicals, is that of course we have this high depression and suicidal rates in our tiny small Aspie communities. And I lived it, and I was depressed, suicidal. What got me out of depression was crossing Canada coast to coast. That event in my life made me establish a strong esprit de corps with my fellow community, my fellow Quebecers, Canadians, North Americans. In 2017, I crossed Canada coast to coast, coast to coast. Coast to coast, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. And of course, crossing Canada coast to coast, ocean to ocean. That made me establish a strong esprit de corps with my fellow community, my fellow Quebecers, Canadians, North Americans. This is since 1944. You can come have a little bit of chicken here. I recommend it, but I can't afford really to spend much money. But you got a lot of places if you come here, learn some French and eat local cuisine. And you know, we got this big metropolis, Montreal, Hawk Island, aka HAWK, the island of the Hawk, which is surrounded by a big river. And of course, here's our French, which we love. That means there's gonna be some asphalt work there, so you can get some more information. You have the barcode, you have that technology which we gotta use to mass finance citizens' fitness. My dream, of course, the dancing goddess in the Dragon Kingdom, is of course the dream for the North American integrated collective to fuse via my bipolar, not to be confused with the psychological condition, via the bipolar strategy for the North American collective on fusion, of course, to fuse Canada, United States into the Democratic Imperial Republic, the Democratic Imperial Republic. And that's how we got those cranes there, and we got those beautiful cranes. I have a little bit of crane fetish. If you don't know, I got a little bit of that crane fetish right there, and I see that twins, and to know how my brain works, see, because of course I operate on a level which of course my brain always switches to geopolitical theoretical analysis as I see the trucks here going. This is going south, south, south. The other one's going north. So this highway is going north, south. Maybe by the border I see trucks. I see about 4 trucks. 1, 2, 3, 4. Although by that way I kind of start seeing blurred, but they look like big trucks. And of course I kind of see blurred, but I think somebody's hugging there. Hug like you never hugged before. I need a hug too, a massage. Also friends with benefits only. Thank you. I don't want to lose anybody's time, you know. I've been depressed, suicidal, broken. Of course I always consequently input my brain switches to geopolitical theoretical analysis, and the study of the geopolitical theoretical analysis is of course consequently directed towards the truckers which are transporting our goods, you know, the bacon, the cheese, the bread, the eggs, and etc, 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 all the other goods which are fundamental for our survival here. I like to give a shout out to the public workers. This is a good choice. I like how these same flowers are around the bottom, then you got internally in the middle, so it's kind of good. Please don't leave trash there. Often sometimes I find trash left here, you know, so please, this is not meant for trash. This is quite beautiful and it embellishes the city. Go public workers. Some rock and roll, and there's some rock and roll which we got and which we don't have. And of course the rock and roll which we have is of course the condiments and the proposition, of course, that here you have to get given priority. But see, you got to turn your heads left and right, because here they officially they have to slow down because it's pedestrian, but sometimes you don't get the pedestrian priority. It's not given, but pedestrians usually have priority there where it's marked, you know, so they're supposed to wait, slow down. But of course consequently it happens that of course we have to get consequential with what the things which we have, and that's how we gotta get doing. How much is gas? It seems like gas dropped, and that's how we gotta get doing on that. And the thing is that with the gas, of course, still up, because it was 93 cents by average in February, you know, 93 cents average in February. So because of the average now, and the salaries have stagnated, so now we face of course 2 main problems. And the fact is of course that we gotta salute the garbage collectors. Thank you for picking up the garbage workers, sanitation workers. I gotta salute, you know, I gotta salute. It's a job that I wouldn't mind doing. And you know, generals got to be able to do all sorts of labor, you know. General Rainbow Dragon here. Got to get out of the way. Got to get out of the way. So that's that situational awareness of which we have to always compute, you know, as neurodivergence. Because the way we communicate sometimes is very strange, you know, it's not that it's strange for us, but it's just our natural, for us it's natural. So that's why we always have to, when we build bridges with neurotypicals, it has to be consequently, it has to be the involvement to just build those bridges of understanding, or just say repeat, or I didn't understand exactly fully what you meant to say, or can you please explain if you don't understand, because I need explanations in certain things of the social nature, where Aspies we lack, eh? Certain things were not so good, we're average, we're so, we're underneath, we're mediocre at some things, especially the way, you know, the social aspect of life, which tend to neglect. So my life, and many Asperger's life, revolves around the special interest, also known as obsessive. But to say that they're obsessive, it doesn't of course render justice to what Asperger's is compared to what Asperger's is not. And it is a neurodivergence. So due to this neurodivergence, we can be sometimes pretty direct and straightforward. That's why when I say friends with benefits only, I really don't want to waste nobody's time, but of course that's what I meant to say. So you see here we got some French. So this actually says here the French, there is gonna be some work executed there for the French, you know, remplacement des entrées d'eau en plomb. So this is gonna be the replacement of the entry. So it's a lot of public work. That's what that says there in French, you know. That's some French there for you, and that's how we gotta get doing with the drill, you know, for my brothers and sisters, all who come here to join us in the North American Collective, you know, is something which we gotta be, of course, prudent about. And I always love to see people working out, hitting that gymnasium, hitting that gym. It's always good, you know, to hit on that gym a little bit, and I've always been, of course, on my fitness journey for more than 7 years. I lost between 80 and 93 pounds. So that's what it is, man, and that's what we gotta do, you know. And Asperger's, again, that's what it is. It's this condition, you know, which sometimes we can be direct and straightforward and not even know that we offend necessarily, you know. It's just the way we are. That's why I say I don't want to waste anybody's time, you know. I just don't want to waste anybody's time, you know. I just don't want to waste anybody's time. And that's what it is. Beautiful flowers there, you know. Nice. That's what it is. And these ones also are nice. That's what it is. And that's what we gotta get doing. I love to see flowers like this, embellishment of this, and these ones also kind of nice. The workers, these are so, you know. I like the bright ones. So for me, somebody else might love them, and that's what we gotta get doing on that. And so I gotta love some flowers, yellow flowers. I love up and down, and that's what we gotta get drilling, man. And that's what we gotta get on that. Yeah, the youth. I love the youth, and they're happy, joyous, and that's all we got, you know. If they're happy, they're joyous, and that's how we have to be doing like that. And that's how we gotta get drilling on the left and on the right and in the middle, and you know, of course, the left and right, you know. And my fellow senior citizens also, you know, we have to be always mindful, because our fellow senior citizens, they built all of this. You know, they built all this in the 20th century, so I gotta salute. I had an experience working in the CHSLDs, quite a nice experience, but of course, that experience, of course, was only probation time because I wasn't kept, and of course, I'm different, and Aspies, we suffer from 80% unemployment. So this is, again, in French, that says that it's gonna be, maybe it's gonna impede the circulation. French. So you got French, you know, we're here in Quebec, and I put it for my French, for the French language, and that's how we gotta get on that drill for the French language, man. So that's why you see that a lot of the notices here are mostly in French, but you can do the translation. See, like that one. So it's French and English, English and French, and I don't mind translating because I'm bilingual. But of course, sometimes we gotta be, of course, bilingual, and sometimes we gotta put it up for the French language. Something which we have to do, and something which we have to manifest. And of course, encouraging all to work out, train, exercise, as I'm doing, of course, a little bit of that workout now, and that's how we got, and we got a little bit of that loving, and that's how we gotta get on that left and on the right and in the middle, you know. Sometimes it's my Trinity of theories, which is best, of course, for the North American collective. And of course, I gotta salute the public workers. All the civilization is a privilege, and of course, now the problem is the three main problems which we face is, of course, two main problems. Actually, a triple problem, economic problem, which we have, right? So the triple economic problem which we're now facing is, of course, the cost of living has been increasing. The prices have increasing. The prices have increased. The prices have increased. The prices have increased, you know. The prices have increased, but the salaries have stagnated. So consequently, these two problems. And the third problem is the increasing credit card debt for both Canadians and my brothers and sisters. I refer to the United States because we are North Americans, and we have to think strategically for geopolitics in all our economic and financial military matters in a bipolar manner, not to be confused, of course, with the bipolarity and the psychological bipolar. There's in the bipolar condition, or some call it a disorder. I don't know, I have Asperger's, so it's different, but I live being depressed and suicidal, and I guess those tendencies are part of bipolarity, you know, the tendency towards depression and suicidal and maybe aggression. Again, I'm not an expert, I don't know, I know a little bit about it. I have Asperger's myself, which is, you cannot treat Asperger's. Of course, if you are depressed and suicidal, then yes, you can take some medication, but I live that. And what keeps me out of being depressed and suicidal, and what has kept me is a regular fitness program, very regular physicality, and of course the physical conditioning, workout, daily exercise and active lifestyle. And another one is of course gratitude. So these two components, I think they're very fundamental to our wellness and well-being, because all civilization is a privilege. Just to have running water and electricity, Hydro-Quebec go. Here I gotta mention that our electricity is zero pollution. Is zero pollution. It's all from the waters. See, for example, this is the translation there. Work planned, French, English, and you got how much is invested. So we got to get that DRT to mass invest in the North American rehabilitation. I'm just going to pass to get a little bit of that, checking a little bit of how much I'm in the red, because I think that it was my debt was paid, and I got to consequentially, of course, check. But you got to appreciate, because this work needs to be done, in the public. Is sometimes we got lead or iron, so we got to appreciate the public works, because it's for our wellness. Fundamentally, it's for our well-being. All the work that's being done and that's being planned and executed, it's something which, of course, we have to appreciate the work which has been done, and of course, which is being done. See all this underneath? Yeah, so it's all changing that. Rehabilitation, of course, for years, and especially in the past 3.5 years during COVID, I've been calling for the mass North American rehabilitation. So we gotta salute the bus drivers. I'm gonna get rid of some. Oh, so this is recycling, and that's garbage. So always be careful. Don't put in the recycling. See, I see a lot of things that have to go in the recycling, and vice versa. No, that's okay, but see, those cups have to go in the recycling. So it's our individual responsibility as well, because if I don't do it, you don't do it, then we don't do it consequently, right? So it's always something which we have to be aware. For recycling, it takes the individual and it takes the collective. That's always a mutual responsibility which we have to have in common, and it has to be accorded concordantly, because how much I'm in the red. So I have $10,000 in debt. See, almost. That's my debt. Almost 10,000. So let's say 10,000. So that's $100 to 10,000. That's not a lot. So let's round it up to 10,000 and pay 10. So I don't have credit cards. I have a credit line, but my next date when I pay the interest is August 4th. Would you like to continue? Yes. And main menu, account information, balance inquiry, checking, display. I'm in the red, but I am financially, I paid all my debts. I'm just gonna have to take some money out in order to get. I'm just gonna take some money out in order to pay my phone. I gotta pay my phone this week, so that's my last bill for the month. So, and then I have $50 to last me for the whole month. And I have that 100, which is balance on my credit line, but that's always only for emergencies, because I'm not exactly at 10,000, but almost. So that is something which I have to be mindful and aware of, and make sure that, see, I'm in the red.
Okay, Bye.
Okay. That's it, and I do recommend, the cleaning here, because you never know who touches it, and microbes, bacteria, germs. So I'm gonna disinfect my hands a bit. So disinfect your hands. That needs to be refilled, and only put a little 4 drops, but those 4 little drops, of course, it kills a lot of the 44 bacteria, germs, and microbes, which of course could have been, of course, interjected and put it on the keyboard. You know, the keyboard that I used to tap in and choose, do the choices, and of course enter my code. You don't want my code anyways, because I'm broke. You're gonna probably, if you steal my card and my code, you're gonna swear at me and come, hey, why don't you have any money in the bank account? I did all the work, you know. I tried to rob you, steal from you, but say, hey buddy, I told you, I only have kisses, rock and roll, and geopolitics. Kisses, rock and roll, and geopolitics. So yeah, I got kisses, rock and roll, and geopolitics, and some marching steps, and encouraging all to work out, train, exercise, you know. Thank you, fellow ASPI in September last year. Donated $25. $25.44, and anybody, I can trade my geopolitical wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, and against your scientific, technological know-how. In the parallel life, I know everything about those are probably 3G, 4G. I think the little ones are probably, the thicker little ones are probably 5G. And in the parallel life, I'm an ASPI also. In that parallel life, I know anything to do with technology, science, physics, mathematics. I build, construct super satellites, microchips, computer science, coding, and everything to do with microchips, and everything to do with satellites launching the altitude and in the sky, and that's what we have to be doing with that, and that's what I do, you know, in the things which we have, and that's what I do in a parallel life. I build, supercomputers, microchips, and always gotta turn, see? Oh, and I can cross on the other side. Oh yeah, I got 40 seconds. So here, you can cross transversely, see? So that's why they're crossing transversely on the go there and there. And you got 7, I got 4 seconds. But here you can cross transversely. So some places you can cross transversely like that. I guess that's good for certain cases, but less for others. So in a parallel life, I also have Asperger's, but there I build supercomputers, microchips, gadgets, electronics, and coding, and supercomputers, ICBM rockets, and satellites. In this life, I do geopolitical analysis, theorizing, and develop bipolar, not to be confused with the bipolar psychiatric disorder, but of course with the bipolar strategy, which is the fuse Canada, United States via the DRT, Detroit Fusion Theory, CIT Citizen Integration Theory, and DFT Democratic Fusion Theory into the Democratic Imperial Republican complex, or the Republican Imperial Democratic fusion, the North and the South, because we got a fuse, but we do also have to finance the North American criminal rehabilitation, and for some certain conditions, you know, we have to give amnesty, and we have to give amnesty to certain individual citizens who have been living here, you know, who don't have criminal convictions, that are majority of hardcore criminal convictions, and there has to be some levels of understanding and some concordance, which we have to do a concordiate. Let's do it in the coming days, weeks, and coming July, August, or let's do it even September 11th on the mountain. And you know, I don't remember personally that event because I got memory loss, you know. I got memory loss with that, and that's how we got doing with that, and that's how we gotta get on that transverse attack, and that's how we gotta get doing on that. So basically, of course, the things which we have to be doing, you know, is something which we have to be consequentially about, and that's what we have to be doing. Look at those beauties, see? Look at those. Wow, and they're just gorgeous. They look so nice, kind of pyramids kind of structure. I don't know their names, but they're very beautiful. Okay, don't pick them though, because here's public for everybody, so it's not to bring home, of course. For everybody to enjoy. I'm gonna gaze a little bit at them. Look at those. What? So nice. I just love them how they're really nice, see? Really nice. Really nice, really nice, and that's what we have to be doing on that. And here's another beautiful field, and beautiful field on that, and so we go, you know. We operate on a, told you already, we operate on a different field, on a different level of authority, you know, on a different level, such as the sun. But the sun's my king, the Pope, you know, so that's how we have to be doing on that. And so we're gonna get reading on to do, you know. Here is the consequential things which we have to be mindful about, and that's how we have to be doing on that, you know. Yeah. So I don't need to go here to the bathroom now, and that's what we have to be doing here, you know. And that's what we have to be on the left and on the right and on the side, and that's what we have to be consequential, you know, to get it on the go, you know. Here we got a little bit of that. Water, water, water. I get a little bit of those ducks there. I don't have time to go to the ducks, but something which you have to be admiring about, and so we have to be consequential about, you know. I think there's a water fountain there. So I know the park, and it's quite a nice park if you want to explore Westmount Park. And please don't pollute, don't throw the garbage. Just put them in the garbage again. If it goes in the recycling, put it in the recycling. That's just a request, you know, fundamental request, which we have to get fundamental about, and we have to get it on the go. And I love to see children happy, playing, joyous there. They're happy, joyous, that's what matters, you know. That makes my day, because they're innocent and joyous, and that's how we gotta get on the congruent side of things, and that's how we gotta get doing, you know. That's it.
More rather than
Yeah, I guess they do, right? Well, oh, I see. I understand. There we go, there we go, there we go. That's the mountain. That's the mountain, and that's what we gotta get doing on the left. And see, there's, sometimes we're passing by there, showing the camera towards here, and that's miles and kilometers away, and that's where that is, man. That's how we have to get a little solar sunrise, raise the sun. Truckers, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, firefighters, plumbers, electricians, the pro-labor, love, universal revolutionary centers, love that. Thank you, public workers. And here we're gonna turn towards the sun, and we're gonna get a little bit of that love in here. Turn towards the sun, and gonna wait a little bit for the water to clear, and that's what I'm gonna wait a little bit for, that water clarity, and gonna wait for about 10 seconds, 9 seconds, 8 seconds, 7 seconds, 6 seconds, 5 more seconds for the water pipes to clear, you know. That's how we're gonna get to hydrant here, you know.
He was distracted. Anyways, he just sounds stuff himself. And I used to some of behind you. Yeah. Is one supposed to have water? I don't know. What did you throw up there? Oh, yeah. Here.
Oh yeah. Thank you to the workers who built this. Imagine all the work underneath to connect it. Otherwise we'll be drinking from the river. Drinking water from the river. Just because I saw children, it made me think of writing a little bit of children's books about that. And of course, gotta get on that XYZ, and we're gonna get on the left or right, and that's what we're gonna get drilling on that. And we're gonna get consequentially, and of course, to write a letter, a book that is. Had a flashing of idea. I'm creative, and I'm an artist. I already wrote a few children's books, but I didn't have the $500, you know. The $500, you know, to write the book, to publish the book. I didn't have the $500, you know, to publish the book. The literary agent, but that's what it is with that, and that's what we have to be doing, you know. That's what we have to be doing, man, and we have to be consequentially. My children's books themes are usually around nature and civilization, revolves with some movements of the body and dancing, and kind of clever interplay of words. But again, I couldn't get published because, you know, $500 to get that literary agent. Anybody, I'm always open for work, and friends with benefits only. But of course, you pledge your allegiance, and of course, the dream, support the dream, the dancing goddess in the dragon kingdom, which is fundamentally, of course, my dream, of course, for the North American collective civilizational complex. And for the North American civilizational complex, that is the dream, which it has to be complementary, of course, to whatever we do. My dream, of course, is fundamentally a call for a public-private partnership. Consequently and complementary, my dream is, of course, a call for a PPP fundamentally, and to implement my strategy, the bipolar strategy, red and white. Look at that. Bipolar, again, not in the psychiatric, psychological sense, condition, and whatever that entails, but in a merely geopolitical matter. And of course, my special interest is geopolitics. It's 24/7 geopolitics. The study, the analysis of geopolitics is always an occurrence. Of course, there's sometimes when I work out, train, exercise, and when I read about sports and fitness, and that's how we gotta get doing with that. And so we gotta get doing on the love side of things, and that's why we gotta get on that prudence, you know, to get it on the consequential manner of whatever the establishment is. And quite interesting breed of dogs there, canine, and that's something which we have to consequently spotted the flag. I always carry my flag, you know. Always carry my flag. Tatted up. Don't know when I had that tatted. Probably decades ago, right? Because you don't know, if you know that, I have memory loss. I have RA, retrograde amnesia. So I have trouble remembering my life, you know, prior to 2014 springish. I remember being attacked by surprise, fell, hit my head, was bloodied up. Consequently, my right shoulder arm was dislocated, and I went to the Jewish General Hospital. I have to go again this week, maybe probably retrieve the archives, and my right arm shoulder was cracked back, replaced, and of course I survived that, and I was given some meds, and I was like in a coma and survived out of trauma. So I don't know if I was drug junkie addict of drugs, or junkie, alcoholic junkie, or if I was an alcoholic or I drank alcohol, drugs, that trauma made me lose memory. Prior to that, I just remember moving from, I lived in Cardenage, moving of course to a very moldy place, moldy place, underground basement, in a very moldy place, and that's how I got, and in a very moldy place, and I moved from there, and of course, having moved from there, I was depressed, suicidal a few years. As many Aspies, we suffer from that a lot. Consequently, with unemployment and crossing Canada coast to coast, that really made me establish a strong esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians. And that's what changed the whole course of my life. Summer 2017, crossing Canada first on the west coast. Saw the Pacific, felt the Pacific, dipped my feet in the Pacific. Did I swim? Maybe. Swam a bit in the Atlantic, which is on the East Coast, you know. In the Atlantic is on the East Coast, you know, so. And of course, we gotta consequently remind ourselves, you know, of the great country we have, you know, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, and wow, really, this is really, really gorgeous. I really love this. I love the symmetry of it, you know, it's all kind of color mixes, and it's something which is quite beautiful. It embellishes the whole area here, and I really love it. I was done, get it on the plateau, and that's what it is with that. The plateau, of course, to make it on the embellishments, and a little bit fast on the red there, buddy. Be careful, there's children. Just press the metal, there's children, buddy. Cross the red. I was on the red, you know, and just because there's children, that's my main concern, and pressed, of course, the buttons. That is the pedal. Press the pedal when you were supposed to press the other pedal. Press the accelerator and you were supposed to press the brake. Anyways, just careful there. It's just children, you know, so. I'm driving steel toes, military grade boots, but that's what it is with that, and that's what it is, you know. That's what I gotta get doing with that, and that's what I gotta get doing, man. Something which we have, and we gotta get on that familial, you know, because I consider you all to be my family, Quebecers, Canadians, North Americans, you know, here, so just be prudent there. So these consequential things of which we have is the dimensions which we gotta interact with each other, and of course those interactions have to be that you have to press the stop, press the pedal for the brake, not the accelerator. So again, to finalize on Asperger's, not a mental illness, a neurodivergence, and that's what I live with it, and that's what I gotta get that rock and roll, and that's something which I gotta be mindful of my difference. As when I communicate, the movement sometimes of the body can seem a bit more strange, awkward, and bizarre, and that's just Asperger's, and I guess I'm gonna live with it till the end, and that's just how we gotta get drilling for our community, and to build bridges with you, the 99.56%. And of course, I will present the DRT theory because I'm approaching. I saw actually those, and I know there's some banking financial institutions there, and I of course, that's recycling, and this is garbage. So you gotta put it properly, you know. You gotta put it properly. So that's the consequential matters. Is of course that we are suffering from three main propositions, and those three main propositions that they are the increase in the prices, and that's how we do, you know, the prices, and that's how we gotta get doing, you know, the prices that we of course increase, and that's how we gotta consequently put the price increasings with the problematic stagnation of the majority of the salaries. Not everybody's broke. I'm broke, but I'm rich, wealthy in other things. And consequently, the prices keep increasing. So there's no way but my DRT theory. Oh my goodness, what is that? Wow. See, if an Aspie has his special interest cars, he would know what this car is. MG.
No, but it's nice.
MG, have no idea what it is. MG. It's yours? Okay, no problem. I was wondering what it was, because I never seen a brand like that, and I thought it was you who drove it.
No.
British.
Yeah, I think it's...
British, and you don't know what it is either, eh?
No, it's an English brand, yeah, I know.
It's a mystery. MG mystery, G for mystery something. Bye bye. That's what it is with that, and that's how we gotta get drilling, man. I'm not sure. Wow, see, an Aspie would know everything there is to know about that particular car. I know my geopolitics, so I'm gonna stick with geopolitics, but now we have the cars because we have the tariffs between Canada and the United States, and the tariffs between Canada and the United States have made us, of course, we have the geopolitics of the car manufacturing. So it is related. I can relate the car fabrication and the manufacture of cars in geopolitical terms, but fundamentally that's what I can do, and I cannot move beyond further to know technical details about car manufacturing, where there's cars and how many parts were involved, and what year of production, what is the gas consumption, and what those particularities, developments around manufacturing the cars are in those specific areas, of course, or of car manufacturing of that particular car, which seems that not a lot of people knew. So we'll see each other in a bit, because gotta really go to the washroom. Rock and roll. Oh yeah, smells good. And yes, wash your hands. I did wash mine with soap. Super important. Let's see what's there. Oh, I'm gonna take one. Let's see. Wash mine independent. Gonna rock and roll with that, and so we're gonna put it in the bag. This feels cool here, so I'm gonna stick to what I know is geopolitics. So of course I'm gonna repeat that I predicted what's happening now. Back in, of course, 2019, I predicted that there's gonna be an international conflagration, international conflagration on the horizon. That was my prediction. Consequently, of course, I predicted, and that's what it is, and that's what it is with that, and that's what we're gonna get doing, So I predicted it in 2019, actually. I predicted that there's gonna be an international conflagration, not as a prophet, as a seer, but of course as somebody who is an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst and also strategist. And of course, due to Asperger's, I excel at these special interests because, again, they're not obsessive in the sense that a neurotypical, the vast majority, the population, 99.56% have as obsessions, but Aspies have to be encouraged in those special interests. Aspies have to be encouraged in those special interests. And of course, those special interests vary from Aspie to Aspie. It could be cars, it could be architecture, it could be rock and roll like me. I have rock and roll, geopolitics, sports and fitness. Dancing is my favorite sport even now. Of course, I do a bit of that dance choreography with my feet, my toes. My feet, my toes, and I gotta love these flowers here, how they're set up on that, and that's how we're gonna get drilling, man. You know, so it's something which we have consequently on the prudence, and here we are, Alcala Montreal, in this life and in another life. Sometimes was born a man, a woman a man, and now you get that 50-50 double trouble. I gotta say, I love this architecture here. There's three black pillars here. Like, also I would use a little bit of white and red. That would be nice, but nonetheless, they're of course quite interesting. And calling all willingly loving, pledge your allegiance to our family, support the dream, the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom, which is fundamentally a dream for the North American Union, the fusion of Canada and the United States in a complex, integral complex to fuse Canada and the United States, you know, something which we gotta be doing. And yeah, sometimes we gotta try to be nice and polite, and you know, as an Aspie, you know, there's certain vulnerabilities which Aspies we have, and thank you to my anonymous friend for that book who made me learn and appreciate my difference, and also understand how not to be abused or taken advantage of, which Aspies, of course, sometimes is more difficult in certain situations, you know. And there we are, heading towards the pyramid. My favorite skyscraper there, see? Hawk Island, Montreal, downtown, core area, Hawk, H-A-W-K. See that pyramid? That's my favorite skyscraper. I wish I could rock and roll for the butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, grocery store clerks, all involved in the production, distribution of food, you know. From that pyramid there. It'll be a weekly event. From the pyramid to the mountain, that's something which we have to be doing, and we have to get it on the go with that, and that's what we have to be living with, you know. This difference which cannot be erased, cannot be medicated, cannot be, you know. And I don't like violence myself, I don't like violence, but I am hyper vigilant, and I've been working out training, and I've been in a World War III mode since 2019. I have proof, eh? I have proof, again, what I mentioned before I went into the washroom. I didn't wash my hands. Please wash your hands, and please keep the protocols of the public hygiene, you know, the COVID protocols, microbes, bacteria, germs, they're out there. And I don't know what COVID was, but of course COVID was, of course, something which, of course, we gotta get that COVID. And of course the COVID situation was that I had it, and I was like death, pestilence, and disease. I thought I was gonna die, and of course I didn't die, but I of course survived COVID. So being that I survived COVID, it's always something which I gotta appreciate as somebody who has survived COVID, and of course who has survived COVID on the go. That I survived COVID. I survived COVID. I got triple vaxxed. See, I survived COVID, and that was quite an experience in 2020, between mid-February to the end of March 2020, so more than 5 years ago. I thought I was gonna die. I was like death, pestilence, and disease, and of course that event, of course, made me come out of being depressed and suicidal, and that depression and suicidalness made me, of course, that I appreciate and live pretty much carpe diem it every day, I guess. That's Latin for seize the day, but I have hope for tomorrow, especially when we're going to implement my bipolar, again, not to be confused with the psychiatric psychological disorder, but the bipolar strategy for the North American Collective, for the fusion of Canada thereof in a democratic Imperial Republican manner, to a mass finance fitness, mass finance citizens working out, training, exercising, mass finance the rehabilitation of the criminal population, and 1, 2, 3, 4 cups. Please don't leave it there. You know, children might take it and might drink from it or whatever. I don't know, if whatever the case may be, if it's, hope not, you know, laced, but if you put some alcohol or whatever and the kid just takes it and drinks, that's something you gotta be aware. See, because there's 2 cups, 1, 2, 3, 4 cups there, but it's just something which is not a corner to leave the trash unless you're at the corner somewhere and you're gonna come back and put it back in the, you know, for the children, because there's children might say, hey, what's this, and drink it, and before the parents or the guardians say, hey, you know, put that down, we'll take a little bit of that. And so we got it. So we gotta get doing, man. kind of way. People hugging and kissing, that's always good. That gives me hope, you know. I like to matchmake, but I'm pretty good. Whoever want to make love with me, you know. Man or woman, a man, you know. If you're a man or woman, gotta be 18 plus, you know. If you're not of age, well, gonna send you back. And I have to go play with somebody your age. Honey bunny. Adrian Hannah Dragon, you know. I'm gonna have to put the concordium just like when you have to, when you card somebody. When you know, when you go to get your alcoholic booze and beverage, or whatever you get, you know, the cannabis is legal here in Canada, legal cannabis. I'm going to operate by the same procedure, by of course requesting your ID, please, if you want to love, and if you're black, if you're white, if you're brown, if you're rainbow, man or woman, because I played that rainbow, androgynous, pansexual, lesbian, artist, athlete, philosopher, geopolitical, theoretical, honest, and theorist, and mystic. Freestyling on this Hakala mantra, going to see a movie, going a bit on that roundabout, and of course, it's 24/7 geopolitics, sports and fitness. Dancing is my favorite fitness and sports activity, and of course, sports and fitness, and parallel to sports and fitness is also rock and roll, sports and fitness. Dancing is my favorite sport. Even now, I have a choreography, and of course, geopolitics. So speaking of geopolitics, I'm gonna stick with what I know. That's where you can donate some food there. Speaking with what I know is geopolitics, so now we're gonna get into geopolitics, and we gotta get on that geopolitics, you know, and that's what we are, and that's what we're gonna discuss. So I predicted the current geopolitical situation back in 2019, October-November. In 2019, in October-November. So I predicted in 2019 that there's going to be an international conflagration on the horizon. A World War III. So I've been in a World War III mode ever since, and consequently I also created and established the strongest bit of car with my fellow Canadians. Gotta take a minute to salute our ambulance drivers. Somebody make some love and give them some chatty ambulance drivers, and you know, the train conductors, truckers, plumbers, and those into daycares changing some diapers, also along with the firefighters, and the daycare workers changing some diapers along with the firefighters. Those also gotta be, of course, on the condition, and but again, there are many of them financially stressed, struggling, because we got that triple problematic, see, economic, financial, commercial, triple problematics, the growing prices of everything. It just keeps growing. That's the problem. Every day the prices are increasing, every day, and the stagnation of the salaries to the consequential prices increasing. Even my rent went up, but I can't complain. Like I said last video, said it was less than $10, so less than 4.44%. So I can't really complain about that, my rent increase, because I guess it's, all things considered, it was below what it's regulated, because we have some regulations. We have to have some balance, because that's the problem, you know. If we don't want a monopoly capitalist on everything, and we have to care and give people second, third chances and incentives to initialize, and you know, to gotta get on that initializing for something like that. And that's how we gotta get doing on that loving, you know, to make it doing on some good reparations, and we gotta get it on that love, you know. That's what we gotta get doing on that drill, you know, to get it for the love side of things. And you know, all my brothers and sisters who come to join us here in the collective, gotta salute the bus drivers across the 63, the 10 provinces, 50 states, and 3 territories, which we're gonna fuse and unite via mighty rebest. Let's sign in the coming days, weeks, months. Let's do it July. ASAP tomorrow on the mountain. Today, not today, because I'm gonna go watch Ballerina. And please again give 1% of the proceedings to Texas Relief. This is special for Texas March, and thinking about my brothers and sisters in Texas. That's how we gotta get the new institution, the Dragon Army, aka the North American integrated SSD Legion, for the consequential prudence of which we have to be integrated about. And we have to be, of course, meditating about, and we have to be consequential about all the activities of which we are involved in. Consequently, and in a prudent manner, please. These have to be recycled properly. But hey, got that Canada on them. Canada, I just found them here. Canada on them. I'm gonna disinfect my hands again, but got that Canada on them. And of course, it's something which we hear that bird. It says go dragon, go dragon, go dragon, go dragon. My only fans, and they know I lost between 80 and 93 pounds, so that's what it is. And of course the rents. The rents have been increasing, and of course the increasing of the rent is something which we have to be consequential about, and we have to be consequential on the left and on the right and on the go to get it done, and something which we have to be establishment of the Imperial, the Republican Imperial democracy, or the Democratic Imperial Republic, to fuse Canada and United States my way best. Again, I predicted what's happening now back in 2019, and of course I do have proof of work. I have proof of work, and now of course it is consequential for me to discuss the DRT, debt refusion theory. DRT, debt refusion theory for the creation of the UE best. I'm on the topic. I gotta discuss it as part of my bipolar strategy, not to be confused again with the psychiatric and mental psychological condition, but the bipolar geopolitical strategy for the 21st century. Total dominion and dominance, double D's, DDD and defense, dominion and dominance via the fusion of Canada and United States into the Democratic Imperial Republic, public-private partnership of North America, as we're going to fuse the North and the South in the 63 for the perpetual Imperial Democratic Union, which we're going to sign added to the amendments of the Constitution, because amendments of the Constitutions are going to have to be done. Amendments on the Constitutions are going to have to be done, of course, because of course the Constitution which exists now, and which I partook in another parallel life, is something that I got to get consequentially about, because I was an American born a woman once, post 1776, and twice was born in the United States and served in the same United States Armed Forces, 2 different lifetimes, 156 years apart. And that's consequently something which we have to be on the doing side of things, and we have to be doing on the collective side of things, and that's how we have to be doing now, because it's an ASAP. The probabilities of a nuclear war are closer than ever, and that's how we gotta get drilling like that, and we gotta get doing on the go, you know. So that is just the consequential things of which we are to be loving and prudent about, because as much as I understand peace through strength, and I support it, but only 50%, 50-50. We have to complement, has to be complementary with some love and understanding, you know. Peace through strength and understanding our North American collective, and our common civilizational complex, that it is distinct, not divorced from Western civilization. It's distinct, not divorced from Western civilization. Many of our mottos, including the motto of Montreal, it's Concordia Salus, wellness through harmony, or harmony through wellness, Concordia Salus. And you see there, you got Fides, Caritas, Veritas, Libertas, and Spes. And whenever I see Latin, I get flashes of past life reincarnations. And I was once in ancient Greece also, Pythia. At one point, I was the priestess, Oracle of Delphi. It's a priestess of an ancient Egypt and a priestess of the Roman legion. So sometimes I was born a woman, a man, and that's how we gotta get doing, a woman, a man, and that's how we gotta get doing on that. And we gotta get it on the left and on the right, and we gotta get on the circumcision side of things, and we gotta get, of course, some things which are out of our dominion, out of our control, and whatever we're born and reincarnated in. But that's why we gotta get on that reincarnation. Sometimes where we live now, you know. 2025 July, of course, 8, and of course full moon's coming. Tomorrow we're gonna do a big cleaning, and Can admire me some of these flowers. And now, look at that gorgeous. Isn't that nice? And of course, discuss the DRT. Doing a little bit of that loving. And I got 6 seconds, 4 seconds. Got plenty. 1, 2, 3, 4 steps to go, and that's all we got left, I guess. Is it closed here? I'm not sure what's going on. Is that okay? Yeah, I think so. I think we gotta go around. That's French. See? Gotta go around here. Utiliser le trottoir, so that's what we're gonna do. This means to use the other one. For certain signs like this, we have to have more bilingual for the tourists also, but it takes translation because we love our French here. So I'm gonna just do the DRT. The DRT, the debt refusion theory, I'm gonna discuss it fully now. Is of course the DRT theory is part of the bipolar strategy for the fusion of Canada and the United States for total 21st century dominion, double D, dominion, and of course the dominance of the 21st century geopolitical environment via the bipolar strategy, of which this bipolar strategy includes the DRT. The DRT, debt refusion theory. So what is the debt refusion theory? The DRT, debt refusion theory, is of course the debt R refusion T theory is the solution. So I'm just gonna focus on that for now. Leave all things aside and focus on the theory. Forget whatever. Well, it's part of me having Asperger's, that this blessing of the theory put on the table along with those trillions of kisses, which of course we're complexed about, and of course those kisses are those trillions of kisses, but that's all we have, you know. So laying the foundations for the debt refusion theory, and that's how we have to be doing with that, the debt refusion theory, and that's how we're gonna get communicated on, and we gotta get it on that 4 seconds, 3 seconds, just in time, I guess, and that's how we got, you know. Yeah. So that is something which we consequently have to be about to implement the DRT, you know. Super important to implement the DRT, debt refusion theory, the debt refusion theory for the creation of the UE, the universal exchange unit. That's how we have to implement the DRT as soon as possible. So of course I will discuss now and focus on the DRT, debt refusion theory. That's what it is with that, and that's what we're gonna get doing. See those double flags there? So we gotta love a little bit of that French, and of course the debt refusion theory, of course, gonna explain it now. So the DRT is the solution because it's the only solution in actual fact, and of course it is the solution, but something similar can be the solution, but it has to be in actuality and fundamental. It has to represent my theory. Fundamentally, it has to represent my theory, right? So the fundamentals of my DRT theory have to be in a theory which can possibly be the solution. An alternative solution has to consequently be similar to my DRT theory, the debt refusion theory. So I'm gonna now explain it fully. So the DRT theory stands for D for debt, R refusion, T for theory. So in my DRT theory is of course integrated the monetary integration theory, which is of course the theory which of course was implemented in the European Union. So this is very important to know and integrate and meditate where I'm discussing it, that inside my debt refusion theory, integrated in it is of course the monetary integration theory is integrated in my theory, the monetary integration theory, which is the financial theory which was implemented in the European Union. In the 90s, the Europeans destroyed their national central banks, in Germany, Italy, France, Belgium, many other countries, they destroyed their national central banks, of course, and they created multinational central banks, which serves as a bank, multinational central bank, which issues the currency known as the euro, right? So the Europeans in the 90s, they basically implemented the monetary integration theory, the MIT, the financial theory, not to be confused with MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, but with this financial theory. So the MIT monetary integration theory is integrated fully in my debt fusion theory. And again, we have no choice but to implement something similar, if not my DRT theory. So I'm going to explain it generally, of course. But because the prices keep increasing and the problem is the stagnation of the salaries, consequently the stagnation of the salaries makes it that we have to be implementing it. We have to be implementing it. So we're going to take all the debt, again, also, this, and binationally, by the way, it has to be implemented, by the way, binationally. Canada and United States consequently together. So, because the financial, economic, commercial situation for the vast majority of the population, consequently for the United States and Canada, is similarly for both Canada and United States, for the 10 provinces, 50 states, and 3 territories. So fundamentally, we have to, of course, implement my DRT theory binationally. Preferably, it could be extended, but at least binationally for Canada and United States, just like they did in the European Union. It could be, of course, extended to include, of course, Mexico. It could be extended, of course, to include Mexico. It could be extended, of course, to include Mexico. It could be extended other countries, but primarily for Canada and United States. So I'm going to explain. So we're going to take all the public and the private debt. All the public and the private debt, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, my $10,000, your $10,000. I don't have credit cards, but now for both Canadians and United States, credit card debt in the past days, in the past weeks, in the past months, in the past years, extremely during COVID, we have reached, the majority of the population have reached record credit card debt. The vast majority are even now swiping, of course, credit card. I love this. Swiping their credit cards now. Swipe, credit card, swipe. To buy now across Montreal, Hawk Island, 2.5 million city metropolis, and across the world. And across North America, primarily what we're concerned is Quebec, Canada, United States. So we're going to take all the public and the private debt, my $10,000, your $10,000, all the public private debt, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. We're going to convert all the public and the private debt into US dollars. We're going to add it with the US dollars. And of course, we're going to add it with all the public private debt of the United States. All the public and the private debt with the United States, we're going to add it together. And of course, we're going to convert, well, we don't all need to convert the United States dollar, but we're going to convert all the public and the private debt. All the public and the private debt. All the public and the private debt. This is beautiful here. This is beautiful. Wow, I love this. Pascal. Thank you. Beautiful there. So all the debt, public and private debt, we're going to convert it into US dollars. To US dollars. All that debt added with the United States dollars, we're going to create a new central bank, which we're going to call whatever we call the Dragon Trump, or the new Imperial Republican Bank for the central bank, which is going to serve as a new central bank for both Canada and the United States. And all the public private debt is going to be the initial money supply with all the money that is used in circulation. And we're going to create the UE, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot UE. U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot UE. The UE is going to have the value of the US dollar. So we're going to create the UE, the universal exchange unit. The UE. U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit. The universal exchange unit is going to have the value of the US dollar. So of course we're going to take all the public and the private debt and we're going to convert it into US dollars. And all that money is going to be the initial money supply for a new central bank. For a new central bank. All that money. I like this. This is really nice. Oh, they did it? Feels a bit exotic. So the UE, the universal exchange unit, is going to have, of course, this new currency, UE. Universal exchange unit. U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit. Gotta love that red, 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 my favorite color. UE, Universal Exchange Unit. The Universal Exchange Unit is going to have the value of the US dollar, and of course we're going to create a new currency. This UE, U dot Universal, E dot Exchange, U dot Unit. The Universal Exchange Unit is going to have the value of the US dollar. With that money we're going to rebuild the infrastructure, rebuild the bridges, build those 44 bridges, and of course 44 tunnels, 44 tunnels. In case of a thermonuclear war, we got to build those 44 tunnels. In case of a thermonuclear war, gonna have to build more bridges, rebuild the North American Collective, rebuild the bridges, mass finance the North American Democratic Republic, mass finance fitness, mass finance citizens to work out, train, exercise, mass finance, of course, the North American Collective, the Imperial, of course, Coliseum, the Imperial Coliseum, we're gonna need to mass finance it. The Imperial Coliseum, super important that we mass finance the building, of course, of that North American Imperial Coliseum. And of course, the DRT is the solution. There's no way around it, brothers and sisters. You can argue all you want, but that's consequently what we have to do it. The DRT, it's an emergency situation. It's the scenarios unfolding according to many of my prediction, and not just my prediction, but some other people's predictions, and that's how we gotta get on that complimentary, and we gotta do it. See, this is my bank. This is where I got $10,000 in debt, but that is what we have to do. There's just no way around it. There's just no way around it. We have to implement the DRT, debt refusion theory, you know, for the creation of the UE, you know. So that's just something we have to be doing now, consequently, you know. Yeah, we have to implement the DRT. There's no way around it. Pledge your allegiance to our family, and that is consequently something which we have to be doing, you know. It's just no way around. No way around it. But we're gonna do lots of good. We're gonna mass finance intra-tourism for general wellness, because of course general wellness is super important, and the general wellness via tourism made that a lot of good when I traverse Canada coast to coast. And we're gonna make an Imperial, of course, public-private partnership for the empire in order of course for us to be saluting and to us to encourage and make the North American Criminal Rehabilitation Act for my brothers and sisters, as I sing for the boys and girls in blue that rock and roll, and for the firefighters, plumbers, electricians, bakers, nurses, daycare workers. I always gotta also sing for my brothers and sisters who do their criminal rehabilitation, the Criminal Rehabilitation Act, and they're gonna support us for the building of the 44 tunnels, and of course consequently for the building of the 44 tunnels we're going to rebuild the infrastructure. We're going to create the two complementary covenant and cooperative institutions, the North American Imperial SSD Legion, the Dragon Army, and the North American Imperial Dance League, the Dance League for the environmental education and action. That is something which we have to do, and here we are at the corner, and gonna wait, gonna go hydrate, and then gonna skip it in. Here you can traverse perpendicularly, so the DRT, debt refusion theory, that's how we have to be doing with that, and that's how we gotta get doing on that, and that's how we gotta get doing with. Is something which we have to be complimentary about, and we have to get it on the little car beauty. So that's what we have to do. Again, there's no choice. There's no choice but to do that. There's absolutely, we are heading towards an economic, financial, commercial collapse. The vast majority of the population, the prices keep increasing. The DRT is the solution. My brother Bill Gates is gonna take a public-private partnership, of course, to do it. It's gonna take a strong PPP, you know, to do it. And I'm gonna hydrate a little bit of that French, I guess. Maybe, oh, this goes high up. Maybe French another time, I guess, because kind of get it on there. I'm sing some French, that rock and roll, support the DRT, support the empire, the empire, the empire, the empire. really hot. Oh yeah! Ah, c'est ça, donc Québec. Je vous encourage à faire l'entraînement physique québécoise. Prêtez allégeance, les gens. Je viens de discuter de la théorie de la refusion de la dette. Vous savez que j'ai l'Asperger's. Je suis un peu bizarre, étrange, mais j'aime pas la violence. Je suis hyper vigilant. Je peux être intense, concentré, je suis pas dedans. Inquiétez-vous pas, j'ai payé mon loyer. J'ai payé mon loyer, j'ai payé ma facture d'électricité, bien sûr. Fait que j'ai payé ma facture d'électricité dans ce sens, bien sûr, que je suis moi-même. Dans la situation de la communication, de où qu'on est exploitable, qu'on puisse être quand même, tu sais, sur un niveau de compréhension du français, de l'énigme, bien sûr, d'où qu'on est rendu, de démystifier qu'est-ce que c'est pas l'Asperger's. L'Asperger's, ce n'est pas une maladie mentale. Je suis neurodivergent. On fait partie d'une petite communauté de 0,44%, moins d'1%, moins de moitié d'un pourcentage, mais c'est dans cette affaire-là qu'on soit bien sûr dans la même condition d'avoir cette neurodivergence. Ça fait que de cette condition qu'on vit maintenant, des fois on peut être direct, on peut avoir certaines caractéristiques qui sont hors normes, qui peuvent paraître comme une maladie mentale, mais c'est pas une maladie mentale, mais c'est quelque chose, bien sûr, que ça fait partie de qu'est-ce qu'on est, puis avec la condition dans laquelle je vis moi-même, c'est sûr qu'il n'y a pas de... Il n'y a pas de médicaments parce que c'est juste des mutations dans le cerveau, bien sûr. C'est sûr, c'est des mutations dans le cerveau et bien sûr, à cause de ces mutations, bien sûr que ça fasse, bien sûr, dans la situation qu'on vit maintenant, bien sûr, c'est une condition que c'est pas commun. Fait qu'il y a bien des gens qui ne savent pas c'est quoi, mais checkez dans mes vidéos d'auparavant, vous allez voir un peu de qu'est-ce que j'en parle. Maintenant, je veux juste dire, je checkais pour voir l'Asperger's, puis soutenez mon rêve, que ça manifeste comme le royaume de la déesse et du travailleur qui danse. Il faut bien qu'on fasse l'implémentation de ma trinité de théorie. TRD, la TRD, théorie. La TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. La TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, c'est quelque chose qui va nous sortir. Donc, on est rendu à avoir une crise financière. La théorie de la refusion de la dette, ça intègre la théorie d'intégration monétaire. Fait que moi-même, avec mes intérêts spéciaux, je suis bon, excellent dans la géopolitique, car les Asperger's, on a de la misère dans d'autres choses qu'on n'est pas si bon. On est médiocre dans un sens. Hey, c'est un beau petit automobile, ça. Wow, ah, c'est un Land Rover, pas pire. Bon, j'aime ça des couleurs plus vives, là, plus rouge, c'est ma couleur préférée, mais quand même, c'est quand même un beau automobile. Puis j'adore voir les gens qui s'aiment, qui se tiennent par la main, ça me donne toujours l'espoir. Puis moi, je fais aussi partie de la communauté LGBTQ. Vous êtes noir, blanc, arc-en-ciel, là. Si vous voulez me faire de l'amour, il faut que juste vous êtes de l'âge, d'avoir l'âge adulte. Sinon, je vous dis bonjour, voilà, allez voir quelqu'un de votre âge. Prêtez allégeance, les gens, soutenez le rêve, qui est fondamentalement pour fusionner le Canada et les États-Unis dans un complexe. Dans un complexe. Pour la stratégie, pour la domination et dominance de la théorie de la fusion démocratique.